Hey there, YouTube. Welcome on back to Artichoke Dip, the tabletop solo RPG gamer and board gamer. I should have included that into the title because I got a lot of board games too. But, oh well, what do they say? Hindsight's 2020, right? No going back on that. So in this video, we're going to get into, actually, let me back up and give a shout out to those out there that gave me the comments to do this video, and I always love feedback for video ideas for stuff you guys want to see. And this video was on gamer ADD, or attention deficit disorder, which I don't think is a real thing, but I understand it, and we're going to address that in this video. So for those of you out there, thank you for the comments. You know who you are, and I greatly appreciate it. But before we jump into the video, let's get the couple disclaimers out of the way. First thing is, if you like the video and the content, let me know. Click the like button. I know I'm on the right path and you like the content and you want to see more of it. Or if you're new here, you just stumbled upon my channel and found it, whether you are a solitaire gamer or if you're in a large gaming group, does not matter. Don't forget to click the subscribe button followed by the bell icon, so when I do upload, you are going to get a notification. All right, so let's get into ADD gaming, or attention deficit disorder gaming. What is it? So for a lot of people, the way they explain it, and I've even been here myself a couple of times and experienced this, you get out your main core rule book, you sit down, you read through it, you read the rule systems of it, you roll up a couple characters, and then you don't do anything with it. It just sits. You move on to another game system, you do the same, and then every time you return to it, you find almost like there's this block wall in front of you that you just can't get past. Well, you're not alone. A lot of gamers experience this, whether they're in a group setting or they're solitaire, and well, there's some reasons behind it. We're going to get more into that later on in this video, but first and foremost, let's address some of the obvious things that can cause this. The first thing right away is you're trying to take on too much at one time. And too much at one time, I've done this, and I have confused game systems before, where I will sit down and read 2 upwards to 3 core rule books and start going over the game mechanics and all of that, and then pretty soon I'm confused. I've totally forgot what goes to what. Then I become frustrated with it, and then I set them aside. It took me a while to learn you can't do this. So what you have to do, and one of the things that I have found that personally work well for me, choose the one game system you like. Don't focus on the characters, and don't really focus that much on the game mechanics at first. Focus on an adventure idea. Start working on that. But here's the other thing. For some people, they may even find a blocked wall there as well. And there can be a couple of things that, well, are causing this. And let's jump into that. And I think once you understand this a little bit more, it's going to make a lot more sense to you. So what makes gaming enjoyable for us? What is that? You know, you sit down and play a tabletop game. Some sessions go extremely well. You're in the moment. You're having fun. You never want that session to end. And then others, it almost seems like a chore to get it going, and you just don't understand why. It's the same game, it's the same characters. What's changed? And you may be scratching your head asking yourself, why is this? Well, what if I was to tell you that this really isn't anything to do with the game, but it's more neurological? You intrigued yet? Well, first of all, we have to understand something called alpha waves. And if you're not familiar with alpha waves, I made my notes here researching this video earlier, and we're going to get into it. Alpha waves help us concentrate. Concentration's a huge thing when it comes to our hobby, isn't it? I mean, you got to concentrate on what you're doing if you want to enjoy it. It helps improve gaming, and it helps us stay on track. So what are alpha waves? Well, we've seen this in action, and we have been able to actually exhibit this, right? We've all seen the person walking down the road with the cell phone in their hand, looking at this, crossing the street, completely oblivious to traffic and everybody else around them. We laugh and giggle to ourselves because we're like, look at that person. But that person is actually in a deep state of alpha. What do you mean a deep state of alpha? Well, this is where I'm going to debunk the A.D.D and help you understand this. And, you know, once you understand the enemy and once you know the enemy, it's easier to combat and defeat the enemy. So, alpha waves, we've seen this before where, especially with TV, if you're in my age bracket, you remember this. You'd walk into the living room, dad's sitting there in the chair watching television, and you approach dad to ask a question, whether it's get the car keys, borrow some money, you know, whatever else you're going to hit your dad up for at that time. And you're going to get one of two responses. A, dad almost seems hypnotized, or dad's just a complete bear because you broke the concentration and he was in a deep alpha wave state. There is science behind this and to prove this. Now, television screens, they all operate within 60 frames per second cycles. 60 frames per second cycles, well, that triggers alpha waves, which is why when you sit down to watch television, if you've ever noticed, if you're in a very lighted room, your concentration can almost be broken very easy. But you go to a theater, they dim the lights, it gets dark. You have this huge screen in front of you, which they call the theater experience. And then next thing you know, you're totally 100% engrossed into the film. You're almost unaware as to what's going on around you. Maybe every once in a while, your concentration will break if somebody walks by, or you hear somebody cough or sneeze or do something like that that may snap you out of it. But for the most part, your concentration is just completely fixed onto the screen. You are in alpha wave is what this is. And this is where, with us tabletop gamers, we really want to be. This is where we enjoy it. And this is where we feel that we are in the moment. This is when we get the most out of the gaming. And it doesn't matter, like I said, solitaire or in a group setting. If you're a DM and perhaps you're noticing your players are not engaging into the game like you would like them to, here are some things we're going to want to look at. Because perhaps what's going on, well, could be environmental, and maybe there's some things you may want to change to help improve this. But let's think about this with the whole entire, as I mentioned before, with like the theater in the movie, the frames per second. And there's a huge difference between our hobby and what you see as far as electronic gaming. Electronic gaming, I think, which one of the reasons why, if you noticed, and you've heard people say this, he or she can sit down and pick up that controller and sit in front of that thing for hours at a time. I just don't understand. They don't pay attention to anything else. They don't do anything else. That's all they do. And there's no talking to this person because they're just completely oblivious. They don't want to have a conversation. And we've seen this before. Lord behold, something happens and erupts that signal from that game console to the TV, or a quick power surge or what have you. I've seen these reaction videos before on YouTube and even witnessed it myself with my own nephews. They just lose their mind because that concentration was broken like that. But you have to understand, the modern gaming consoles are operating on 120 frames per second. Well, if 60 puts you into alpha, you can imagine what 120 does. 120 is just going to completely engross you, and at that point, pull your attention right in, putting you into a very, very, we're going to put deep alpha wave of your brain, which isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing because that's where you get the enjoyment from. But with that being said, let's see how we can improve our gaming environments and improve other things to be able to have a better tabletop experience. Oh, yeah, just had to get that sip of coffee out of the way. It's a little hot, just made it. Okay, so now that we understand what we're dealing with, this is actually what we are grappling with. It's a neurological thing that we have to try to induce in order to get past these obstacles. Now, it's more so than just trying to go into an alpha wave, we'll say, setting. I'm going to use that word, even though I know it's not medically correct, but that's what I'm going to use. An alpha wave setting to be able to say, yeah, I'm going to play this RPG game today. This is what I'm going to do. I just need to find a flicker rate of 60 frames per second or more. No, that is where you'd be wrong. First thing is, let's look at environmental. When you sit down to do your gaming, are other people consciously aware of what you're doing? Or are you constantly inundated with interruptions? You know, people coming in to ask you a question. Your phone is ringing. Maybe the neighbors next door are having an argument. Or you're just in an area that just has a lot of outside urban noise that's constantly drawing your attention away and you are distracted. If so, well, it's going to be very hard for you to enjoy any type of gaming. I don't care if you're playing in a group or if you're playing solitaire. Your attention is constantly being drawn away. You're never going to enter into an alpha setting. It's just not going to happen because your attention is being drawn away. So it's imperative when you get to this to eliminate these distractions if you can. I know it's not possible. Some people just cannot. And maybe this comes to my next thing that's going to help. Music. I'm a huge music lover. If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know this about me. I love to play music, whether it's on the guitar, listening to music. I always have music in one way or form that just seems to not only improve my life, but I'm going to say influence my life as well. Depending on how I am feeling and what I am doing, different music genres seem to work better than others with that, and gaming is no different. It's really not. I like to use music, particularly background tracks. I don't like the music so loud that it's the only thing you can concentrate on. It's the only thing you can hear. It's drawing your attention away. But I like to play gaming soundtracks towards a comfortable level. It improves the atmosphere. And after a while, at that point, I'm able to focus more on what I am doing as far as gaming. Whether I'm playing a scenario, I'm planning a campaign, creating characters, painting minis, creating terrain, or heck, even reading a new core rule book, all of which just help heighten the experience and keep me in the alpha wave setting to be able to enjoy it, not breaking my concentration. This can help a lot. It can help very, very, very much. You would be surprised how much this will help you. Now, I have found for me, everybody's different out there. Let's just get that out there. Everybody likes a different type of music, and different things help them relax. For me, I enjoy orchestrated or just pure instrumental music. There are some exceptions that are out there that do have vocals in them, but if I'm sitting down to play an RPG game, typically I don't want anything loud. I'm going to listen to more of an instrumental track than I am Iron Maiden or Slayer or Metallica, just because, well, these types of music are going to get me ramped up, and I'm going to want to do something far more physical. I'm going to want to put my earbuds in. I'm going to want to go outside and work in the yard, or I'm going to want to go and walk and at that point exert some physical energy, because that's what these sounds are really help me do. Whereas if the other type of instrumental musics really help me in the moment, sit down, focus on the task at hand, and have a far deeper concentration level to it. So if music is something you have not tried and you're struggling with this, I highly encourage it. And only you can answer this question, and you're going to know what kind of music you like, what kind of genre, whether country, rap, rock, metal, instrumental, what have you. Try putting it on a comfortable volume. Comfortable volume meaning it's not so loud it's dominating what you're doing, but it's in the background and it's louder to help drown out them other noises that you may have going on in your environment, to at that point help you focus better. And it's going to improve you achieving an alpha wave state to be able to enjoy your gaming more. Now, some of the other things that we can do to help induce an alpha wave state for this, believe it or not, try some coffee. Not too much to where you got the jitters, but taking the edge off with a little bit of caffeine, particularly if you've had a long day. If you've had a long day, you've had a lot of activity, you've had a stressful day, what have you, and you sit down to do your game and you're tired, you're worn out, you're stressed out, what have you, it's probably not the best time to game, because you're not going to be able to focus. Your mind is going to be drawn in several different directions at once, concentrating on other things rather than what you want to concentrate on. Sometimes I have found what I do a lot, utilizing the first, turning the music on, setting that, I'm going to say atmosphere for myself. I have the music going. Recently, I found a new, it's a new artist I have found on Spotify called Wardrunda. They're Scandinavian. It's traditional, what you would call folk Viking music. It's wonderful. I love it. I love the sound of it, everything about it. I turn it on and I sit down and I automatically start thinking gaming. Get me a cup of coffee, relax for a moment, drink on the coffee, allow myself to relax, and then get into the gaming. And it works wonders. And you may be thinking to yourself right now, this guy is out of his tree. I'm telling you, these are proven methods that actually work, and they're here to improve your gaming. Okay, so the other thing you have to consider as well, and honestly, this is a big one, it is a huge one because it can caffeine. It can affect your mood your concentration, and it can affect your overall well-being. Make sure you are hydrated. This is, believe it or not, one of those things that a lot of people do miss with the consumption of energy drinks and sodas and other things we have out there. A lot of times, many people, particularly people that enjoy gaming like we do, sometimes we don't eat the best. We tend to overindulge in sugary drinks, high caffeinated beverages that have a lot of sugar in them, which the end result is dehydration. And with dehydration, we don't feel well ourselves. It's harder for us to actually achieve that alpha setting and be able to concentrate and keep our mind on the game. This is the neurological side of it, the scientifically proven way that our concentration is held and we can enjoy things. Let's look at the other side, and that is, well, maybe, perhaps maybe, you are selecting too many games. Now, with this, I can personally say, what I do and I have found that works for me over the years is this. If you want to play multiple games, there's no problems with that. But try have multiple different segments of development, of play, of whatever you're doing. And I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So, as you've seen in my last videos, if you watched them, I had played Mork Board. I had posted all these episodes. I had got to the end of that game session and I had to create a village. I didn't jump into that right away. I went to another game system I had already had going and pulled that one out and went to that. One of the reasons why I do this is it's a breakaway. It's a different game system. It's already established and running, and I'm going to pick up on that and continue with that a little further. This does two things. One, it gives me another game system to enjoy that's already established and running. And two, it gives me time to sit and think about how I want to take that next game and what steps I have to take in order to create or develop it. And I can spend more time to make sure I'm getting the most out of it. So when I had decided, yeah, I got to make a village, this is what I got to do, I released a video series, showed you step by step how I do it. And then when I was done, as you can see, the village is done. The first video is already up. And now my game has continued on. I don't feel bogged down. I don't feel worn out. I don't feel when I sit down to grab this game and look at it that I'm like, okay, well, yeah, there's that. Oh, hey, what's this one over here? Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to roll a couple characters and get you. That's why I do that. Now, organization is key with this. Me, I like to use loose leaf binders. And I'm sure for many of you out there, you know what a loose leaf binder is. For those of you that you just don't know, maybe everything you have done has been PDF and just all electronic. I like to use these. Nice loose leaf binder. I can put everything in there. And then when I get to that point that I have to move forward with the creation process, or like I said, creating a village, creating something else, that can be set aside. I can grab another game out and put that on there that's already established and start using that one. Now, let's say you got a new game system in, and I totally get this. You get a new game, you are completely excited about it, you want to play the game, and you've been waiting on this, well, maybe what you could do is set aside that game night time and focus on getting to know the book first. After you've read through the book, you have familiarized yourself with that and the rules. Give it some time. Think about it. Don't think about characters. Characters should be the last thing you think about. What you should be thinking about are, what kind of campaign or one shot do I want to do? What am I going to need for this? Do I need any, depending on how you're playing it, whether you like me with 3D terrain and miniatures, do you have what you already need in your arsenal? Or are you going to have to create some, or whatever have you, to make this possible? And then 4, last but not least, it's time to put paper to pencil. It is now that time to actually begin the creation process. In doing so, you're going to find, if you take these steps over a couple of gaming sessions, in limiting yourself, give yourself an hour at a time when you go to do this. You're going to find you're going to get more out of your time, and you're not going to be lacking. Well, why? Because after we do this for a while, you're going to train your brain to this. Your brain is going to understand, hey, I know what this music is, and I know what this music is for. I have my cup of tea, coffee, or a big tankard of grog, whatever it is you're drinking, and you sit down at the gaming table. It's automatically going to know, hey, this is the time that we go into the alpha wave setting, and this is what I'm going to be doing. And then move on with that. Now, if you found yourself just constantly drugged down with character creation, yeah, RPG games are piling up and you're not doing anything with them, here's something else you can try to help alleviate that. Focus on other facets of the hobby to fill your time, to give yourself time to reflect and think on that other facets. What do you mean? When it comes to our hobby, there are many different facets of this that you can really make the most out of your gaming time with. Like I said, you could paint minis. You could sit down and do a, I'm going to say, non-RPG system specific campaign, meaning sit down, start brainstorming, coming up with some ideas of worlds or ideas that you've always wanted to utilize and play with, but maybe you never have because you have felt restrained to one rule set or another. Don't worry about the rule sets. Don't worry whether, if it's this edition of this, or if it's in this, or if it's a D20, or if it's a D6 system, or it's a D100 system, or if it's an extremely elaborate rules-heavy system, or if it's a simple system. Don't worry about any of that. As a matter of fact, that should be the last thing in your mind. That right there is a mental distraction that's going to pull you away from what you should be enjoying. Focus on the story. Focus on the way you want it to go, the world that you want, and all these things that are going to soon come to fruition to your game table. Next thing is, you could focus on miniature painting, terrain creation. If you don't use 3D and you're just strictly theater of the mind, like I said, at that point, you can focus on other things, such as, hey, I want to do this RPG, but I have not created characters yet for it. Well, have you ever thought about sitting down and doing nothing but that? Start coming up with backstories for these characters. Where do they fit in? Who do they know? What world are they in? How are they all bound together? And what is their overall primary objective together, into what means? you're going to find you can fulfill a large amount of time with just these small little suggestions and things that you can do. And it doesn't always have to revolve around rolling dice and moving on. I know at times when you look around YouTube and you see other channels, whether they're in group settings, whether they're solitaire settings, it can look like this is all we do all the time is just throw dice and have just these very vivid adventures in all these different systems. Well, truth be known, when the camera's not rolling, what you don't see is all the preparation time. And like I said in my intro, I'm not an influencer, I'm a gamer. I'm going to explain to you the real world, not a commercialized world to try to sell you something. RPG games take a lot of work. You have to put a lot into them if you want to get a lot out of them. So if you're just going based off of let's roll a character, throw it on the table, and have this great adventure, you're going to find you're going to be very dissatisfied very, very quickly. So I covered that. Another aspect that you can do that doesn't involve just gaming if you're finding AD&D affecting you is try this. If you're a solitaire player, you always can use a randomized table for your campaign or your adventure. Maybe your last gaming session you went through, you found it's very vague or it just did not work out the way you wanted it to. This is an excellent time to brainstorm, come up with new tables, develop new ideas, maybe take that adventure in a different way. Another thing that this is a really good time for if you find yourself stuck in a rut, start familiarizing yourself with a lot of the Game Master materials that are out there. These are actually designed to spark your imagination. The player's handbook is going to be more so heavy on the rules and what the player needs to know to make the character and what's expected from the player. But the Game Master side is all about this is how you create the world. This is what you add. This is how you keep the story moving. This is what you can do with it. So there is another aspect that you can pull on. You can do for an hour and sit down, familiarize yourself with, and you're going to find by the end of it, you're going to have a lot of great ideas and directions to go into. And it will also help you pull you into that alpha wave setting, and you're going to find you'll start enjoying gaming, because now gaming isn't just about rolling dice. It's about every facet of the hobby that you're pulling on to make it at that point whole for yourself. Now, one other thing that I can absolutely 100% stress, and I'm just going to get out there, that I found for me, and I've talked to others that feel the same way when it comes to tabletop gaming. And this goes towards distractions. If you're trying to game in a room with a television, that may not be a good idea. Your attention is going to be constantly drawn to that. Or if your phone is on your table and you're trying to game and this thing keeps going off and spitting out notifications at you, you're going to be tempted to pick this thing up, look at it, and then before you know it, you're not focusing on gaming. You're focusing on this notification or the next news story or whatever is going on online at that moment. You're just completely at that point gone. And now your brain has gone to a different setting of alpha wave, but it has nothing to do with gaming. Me personally, I don't like screens. I know people have asked me, have you checked this out? A good example on my live stream on D&D Beyond. No, it's a screen. I don't have anything to do with screens when I do my gaming. My gaming is tabletop. I have all screens off. Well, exception of like my laptop back behind here, but we have to have that on for editing purposes. But you can tell I'm making the video and talking to you. I'm not distracted by this. I turn all the screens off. And as a matter of fact, I have found when I make my playthrough videos, I put my phone on airplane mode. As a matter of fact, after about 5 to 10 minutes of when I'm recording my playthroughs, I totally forget there's even a camera there. And you'll notice this if you watch my videos. There'll be times where I'm moving stuff around, I'm into what I'm doing, and I'm knocking the tripod over everywhere, and you can see the camera bouncing. It's a good example. These are all things and steps that we can take to do to be able to curve that, what we call attention deficit disorder, when it comes to gaming. I hope these suggestions help, and I hope you've gotten something out of this that will help you if you're stuck in this rut. And it is a rut, and it doesn't affect just solitaire gamers, it affects gaming groups. And they may say, no, it's because we're not playing solitaire, because we have this, we have that. I don't buy that. I have played in groups before. I have seen it firsthand, to where you may have a group of 6 people, maybe 2 of them are involved as to what's going on. They are in that alpha wave setting with the game master. The other 4 are struggling to stay awake, or they're just staring at their phone. They can care less what the game master has saying, and they don't know what's going on because they are so distracted away from what is happening currently. So let's do a brief recap on what we can do to help defeat AD&D tabletop gaming. 1, change things up. If you're playing in multiple game settings, have your games in multiple different stages of creation, play, or what have you. This way, when you go to them, it's going to be something different, and it's not just going to be dice rolling. And this is a big one, particularly if you're playing similar systems. I'm going to use this example. D20 systems. If you're playing 3 different game settings and 3 different D20 systems, you're going to find you're going to start to feel this AD&D, as you put it, because really you're playing the same system in a different setting. Keep them in different stages of development and as you go. That way, it is new, it is fresh, it is going to capture your imagination, and you're going to get more out of your gaming sessions. Second of all, look at your environment. What do you have going on? Are you constantly being distracted? Do you have a TV over here that's just blaring? Do you have a neighbor over here that is just completely obnoxious and to the point to where it's distracting and taking away from your time? Do you have any of these outside influences that perhaps music could help drown out, and at that point give you time to focus on what you're doing? The other thing is, take a good look before you go into your gaming session what you have going on. Like I said, if you're at this point binding yourself to this amount of time to do this, no exceptions, this is what's going to get done, you're going about it the wrong way. You are forcing yourself. Gaming should be there as an enjoyment. This is a hobby. This is our chance to be able to put aside all the stresses and everything else we deal with everyday life and give ourselves this hour to be able to indulge in this fantasy world and be able to forget about all this and be able to finish these sessions and have fun. We should be done with them with a smile on our face, or in suspense, or in horror, or whatever else depending happens in your solitaire gaming experience, and not feel as if you have a chore that you have to complete. This is not the way to do it. So if you sit down, you're stressed, you're worried about this going on in your life, you have this bill that may be late, you got this person over here perhaps you had an argument with today, and you're just, all of these things weighing heavily on your mind, maybe at that time it is not the best time for you to game, particularly if these are going to prevent you from going into an alpha wave setting to be able to enjoy the game. The other thing is, if you sit down to game and you're feeling tired, you're feeling sluggish, You're sitting there and you're doing one of these. Well, why not brew yourself a hot pot of coffee or some tea? Something like that. Don't overindulge in the caffeine to where you're jittery and now you can't get anything done because you're... No, just enough to take the edge off of that exhaustion you're feeling and be able to pull you to an even kill to be able to enjoy that gaming again. This is going to help with you setting into an alpha wave setting, and you're going to get more out of your gaming. Other thing is, I'm going to bring up again, make sure you are hydrated. Make sure you're getting plenty to drink and you're just not over inundating yourself on the sugary drinks that will dehydrate you. This is just going to make it harder to be able to achieve an alpha wave setting and to get more out of your gaming. Plus, it's something we should just all do because we need to stay hydrated, right? I would say so. The other thing is, as well, just to recap this video and round it out, is, like I said, I cannot overemphasize this enough. Don't feel as if you're bound to your RPG game to be constantly rolling dice, playing all the time. Look, research, develop all the angles of the game, whether it be making more robust randomized tables for your game session, whether it be creating and generating a new part of the map for it. All of these are gaming. They're all have to do with gaming, and it doesn't mean you have to be rolling 20s all the time. Save that for when you are ready to jump in and game with it. Second of all, when it comes to a new game session, in putting this into circulation of which ones you want to play, characters should be the last thing you worry about. First of all, become familiarized with the game system itself. Let it sit. If you are over-saturating yourself with game rules, this is one of the problems you may be running into. Limit yourself to maybe one new core rule book a week, 2 weeks if you can. Really give it time to honestly sink in. Give it time to sit, analyze it, think about it. Think about what you like, what you don't like, what you would change, what is very soluble for you, and what is not that you may want to change. Reading too many core rule books too much blurs all the game mechanics, it confuses you, and it puts you into this state of you may not know where to start because your brain is just trying to absorb all this knowledge that you are taking in. That is a huge one, very huge. If you've heard me on my video say, hey, I have this game system, but I have yet to get into it. Why? I've read the introduction. I thumbed over it. I've got my first impression from it. I'm going to let it sit for a while now, and I'm going to think about that. Then I'm going to go back to it, and I'm going to get into it further. I have found over the years that this is a far easier way to absorb this knowledge, learning a new game system, and figuring out what you like, what you don't like, rather than 4 or 5 game sessions later going, I would do this differently, I would do that differently, I would do this differently. This is going to better equip you with that because now you are mentally doing that and you're giving your brain time to actually absorb all of this, and you're not going to be over inundated with rule sets and everything when you do go to play, having to go back through that book, having to reference rules, it's a lot. It is a lot. So with that being said, give yourself time. This isn't a race, if you think about it. The whole thing about solitaire gaming is you do this on your time. You do this because you enjoy it, and you do this because you want to be able to create and make the worlds exactly the way you want to make them and not be limited to time constraints or scheduling. It's no different when we're learning a new core rule book. It's the same way. Take your time with it. Really think about it. Go over that book. Think about it. There's something you're fuzzy on. Go back over it. Create the world you want to create. Design them randomized tables. Then worry about the characters. You're going to find by doing this that your game sessions are going to be far more interesting. They're going to be far more fulfilling. It's just, unfortunately, the world in which we live in today, everything is about instant gratification. And unfortunately, when it comes to tabletop RPG games, this does not always work. RPG games, there's a huge learning curve with them, and we have to allow our brains, with our busy everyday lives, time to be able to absorb this and to be able to 100% accurately utilize this as we go to put this on the game table. I hope this helps answer some of these questions out there. If you're combating with what they call attention deficit disorder and you keep finding yourself in the same rut, trust me, these things work. If they didn't, I wouldn't talk about them. I haven't said this in a while. What's the secret to great RPG gaming? Proper caffeination. One of the things you've heard me say on YouTube, man, I wish when I go to do my solo playthrough session, I could have music in the background, because it does lack. It's one of those things that are missing. It's the difference between when I game off camera and when I do game on camera. There's just a huge, huge difference there that I do notice. The other thing is, limit all them environmental distractions. Turn them screens off, even if you have to flip your phone to airplane mode, to, at that point, lock out all the notifications, everything else that you're experiencing that are going to pull you away. I hope this helps. I truly do hope this helps a lot. And let me know. Drop me a comment below. Tell me if this has helped you out, if you think this is a good advice, or what have you. Perhaps you may agree, disagree, or nowhere in between. But I guess we'll find out when we get this video up. So with that being said, these are my thoughts and not yours, my friend. And this is Artichoke Dip, the solo tabletop RPG gamer, signing off.